Greetings and welcome to today's segment of Front Page, where every weekday I summarize and find the most interesting parts of the day's headlines from 5 different newspapers from around the world. My quest is to weed out the facts as they're reported in each newspaper, and I'll do my best to find the most interesting stories out there. I'm your host, Murad Hamami. Let's get started here at home in Turkey with the Daily Sabah. Now, their headline reads, "It's high time for global mobilization for Afghans in need." This is getting too much now. This is a big story. A worldwide campaign must be launched immediately to meet the needs of those struggling in Afghanistan. That's according to the head of the Turkish Red Crescent, who said that he announced that Turkey's kindness train carrying tons of aid is expected to arrive in the country on Wednesday. Turkey's kindness train carrying nearly 750 tons of humanitarian aid to Afghanistan is expected to reach its final destination on February the 9th. Turkish Red Crescent head Kerem Kınık said Saturday and called for a global mobilization campaign for Afghanistan amid the ongoing humanitarian crisis in the country. Aid agencies describe Afghanistan's plight as one of the world's most rapidly growing humanitarian crises, according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Half the population now faces acute hunger. Over 9 million people have been displaced, and millions of children are out of school. Recently, the UN and its partners launched a $4.4 billion funding appeal to avert the humanitarian catastrophe in Afghanistan. Okay, that's what the Daily Sabah reported on. Let's go on to a British paper. The Daily Mail. And the headline reads, "Queen gave Camilla plan her blessing years ago." Of course, it is the Platinum Jubilee for the Queen, 70 years on the throne. And Prince Charles changed his coronation vows several years ago to include Queen Camilla, with his mother's blessing. Now, the insertion of the vows included a part of a general network or reworking of the plans for the Westminster Abbey ceremony up to 5 years ago. On Saturday, the Queen announced that the Duchess of Cornwall will become Queen Consort when her husband succeeds and he comes to the throne. It can also be revealed that Camilla will have the Queen Mother's priceless platinum and diamond crown placed on her head when Charles is made king. It was created for King George VI's coronation back in 1937. Yesterday, the Prince of Wales made clear his gratitude to the Queen for her support, saying that he and Camilla, who he described as his darling wife, were deeply conscious of the honour represented by his mother's wish. Okay, let's take a look at this report.
Prince Charles led tributes to his mother, Queen Elizabeth, on Sunday, the 70-year anniversary of her accession to the British throne, and thanked her for publicly stating her desire for his wife Camilla to become Queen Consort when he becomes king. The Queen had made her thoughts known on Saturday, saying it was her sincere wish, a request that is likely to end any discussion about future titles. The 95-year-old Queen has passed a milestone never reached by any of her predecessors in 1,000 years. Charles was joined by Prime Minister Boris Johnson, politicians, churches and members of the public in praising the Queen for her dedication to public service. Charles and Camilla, longtime lovers, were married in 2005, enabling her to gradually take on a more prominent role. Camilla was once vilified by the tabloid press for the breakdown of Charles's marriage to his first wife, Princess Diana. However, Camilla, currently Duchess of Cornwall, is now a popular member of the family and regularly appears at official duties alongside Charles and the Queen. The statement on the future of the monarchy comes as the country celebrates the Queen's role over the last 70 years. The country will hold national events to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee in June.
You're back with me in the studio. Okay, now with the Olympics going on, let's take a look at what China's reporting on. What else? China Daily. President Xi Jinping hosts banquet for Games global guests. Okay, President Xi Jinping elevated the Olympic spirit to a new height and pointed the way for humanity to respond to various risks and challenges as he welcomed global dignitaries at a banquet on Saturday. Xi and his wife Peng Liyuan hosted 25 dignitaries who attended the opening ceremony of the Beijing 2020 Olympic Winter Games at a banquet at the Great Hall, and the people where state guests were offered a carefully choreographed showpiece of traditional Chinese culture and Winter Olympics. Now, 31 foreign heads of state, government, and international organizations and members of royal families attended the opening ceremony of the Games on Friday night, making them part of about 170 official representatives from about 70 countries and international organizations taking part in the event. Now, we also know a lot of these countries like the USA, the UK, France, Australia have all boycotted these games. Well, they've boycotted, they haven't sent their ministers to the events. Okay, now, while toasting the banquet's participants, the president made a three-point proposal to amplify the Olympic spirit, calling for greater solidarity in international community to respond to various global challenges. Okay, let's move on now. We've got two more to go. Pakistan's up next. Now, because we were talking about China, let's look what Pakistan's saying. They're also talking about China. Pakistan and China vowed to protect each other's core interests. Like I said, this was because we were talking about China. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Imran Khan Sunday agreed to deepen CPEC developments and work jointly to accelerate the building of a closer community. Now, to get a much more in-depth look at why these two countries are meeting on what they plan to do, we're joined by my very special guest, Mr. Javed Rana. He's a journalist and analyst based in Islamabad. Javed, thanks for joining me here Monday. It's always a pleasure to see you. Now, the Pakistan Today newspaper has gone with a headline that Imran Khan and Xi Jinping, I presume they met in Beijing for the Olympics. What did they talk about and why? What's so special about this new? Is it a new relationship? Is it strengthening an old relationship? What's going on?
Well, I think Pakistan basically has been sandwiched between the US and China in ongoing their Cold War. And the US is trying to pull Pakistan and in a manner that it doesn't pursue the much bigger project, the road and build infrastructure project, the part of which passes through Pakistan. I think in that context, this statement is important, where both countries have given assurance to each other that the critical part, the core interest of they are going to be washed and served. I think now, since the Americans have been trying behind the scene, trying to prevail upon Pakistan that it should not support Chinese build and road in infrastructure, which actually begins from China and to moves from the major parts of Pakistan and link it to the Gwadar port of Pakistan in the southwest of the country. And from there, it leads to the Europe, Africa, and other Asian countries. And in order to counter this particular project, the USA and other G7 countries, they have come up with their own project. They call it as a Build Back a Better World. Basically, they're trying to contain China through that kind of project. Pakistan right now doesn't want to be seen that it is siding with any particular country. It wants to watch its own economic interest. Pakistan wants to join the American-led project. At the same time, it wants to remain part and parcel of the Chinese Belt and Road infrastructure project. So in that context, I think this is an assurance. But I can tell you that at this point of time, there is an element of some sort of division. Pakistan doesn't want to be seen much with the China because it doesn't want to join Chinese bloc in a manner that it is perceived that it has gone with the China. But given the situation that exists on the ground, I think it is going to be very difficult for Pakistan not to choose these blocs if the ongoing Cold War between the US and the China intensifies. Europe has been backing the USA, while it seems that given the fact that India has joined the USA, given the fact that Israel has joined the US, and behind the scene they have a very strong relationship. And given the fact that Pakistan has a dispute with the India over Kashmir issue, and China has a territorial disputes with the India, Pakistan's political and geostrategic interests, they are more are with China than as compared to the USA, which wants to keep Pakistan dependent. When it comes to China, China has built an infrastructure in Pakistan. It has come up with, at least so far, it has spent 26 billion US dollars. And Americans have been telling Pakistan, look, this is a debt trap. Partly Americans are telling the facts, but at the same time, the Americans don't have that kind of a big alternative for Pakistan. Out of no option, I think Pakistan will have to stay with the China because its political interest matches with the China, because the China is coming up with a bigger investment. And lately, both the Chinese and Pakistani leaders, they have also discussed now to expand these mega projects to Afghanistan. You know, the Americans were disgraced from Afghanistan just last year when they had to pull out. Taliban took over the entire Afghanistan, and now Russia and China.
Okay, Javed, thank you so much. I know you're very passionate about the whole region. I really appreciate it. We're actually running out of time, sadly. It sounds like a very complicated situation, but you have simplified it a little bit for us. We appreciate that, Javed. Thank you so much for joining us here on Front Page. We'll talk again soon. I didn't mean to cut you off. I am sorry. I know you got excited and got away. We'll talk again soon, sir. Thank you very much. That was Javed Rana in Islamabad. Now, of course, there is a lot going on now. Just to recap there a minute, that China and Pakistan are meeting, and that's it. Okay, let's move on now to our final paper. So the Wall Street Journal is the newspaper I chose for you because, yes, we know Russia is planning, or we think Russia is planning to invade Ukraine. But NATO, of course, has forces in the area, and they've gone with the headline, US-led air bridge steps up military shipments to Ukraine. Now, we know that NATO or the US won't actually invade or won't actually help Ukraine, but we know that they have to protect the NATO forces now. Until the current rise, Russia, Turkey, and the US have been the only countries willing to risk Moscow's wrath by supplying weapons to Ukraine. Turkey has provided Kiev with a fleet of TB2 Bayraktar armed drones that Ukraine has already used on the battlefield in the Russia-controlled Donbas region in the country's east. Along with the US, British, Canadian, and Polish instructors have been training the Ukraine armed forces in modern warfare. Now, Moscow has enormous advantages in air, sea, artillery, missiles, and manpower that the latest Western supplies are unlikely to run out. Yet officials in several countries have said that their concerted effort in military aid signals Western resolve and complicates Russia's invasion costs and options. US shipments so far include small arms, ammunition, mortars, and artillery shells, anti-tank guided missiles, bunker-busting missiles, grenade launchers, explosive ordnance, disposable suits, and Mossberg 500 pump-action shotguns. Ukrainian officials also say that the UK has supplied thousands of anti-tank missiles, and the Baltic states of Latvia and Lithuania have sent American-made Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. Now, the latest US payload arrived in Kiev on Saturday. The US has sent about 650 tons of weapons and equipment to Ukraine since the 22nd of January, since Russia's annexation of Crimea and the annexation of the eastern Donbas region in 2014. The US has provided $2.7 billion in military aid to Ukraine. A large proportion of US shipments to Kiev have been taken with ammunition in a variety of calibers, including high-intensity grenades, high-caliber rifle rounds, armor-penetrating tracers, hundreds of thousands of rounds of anti-tank ammunition, and a surplus are included. I mean, it's just insane how much it has been spent on this war that hasn't even happened. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Well, that wraps up the top headlines of the day. Be sure to tune in tomorrow at the same time, where I'll be here giving you a synopsis of the front pages from around the world. I'm your host, Murad Hamami.